in Christianity? And my answer is, I believe it because it's true. So that's what we're going to talk a bit about tonight. What is truth? So let me just start off with by quoting a guy by the name of Andrei Sakharov. He was one of the leading scientists in Russia who gave the Soviets the atomic bomb. So before he passed away, he made this statement. He said, "I always thought that the most powerful weapon in the world was the bomb. I have changed my mind. The most powerful weapon in the world is not the bomb. The most powerful weapon in the world is the truth. It's the most powerful thing in the world, the most valuable thing in the world." Just think about this about 2,000 years ago. The man who asked the most important question you could ever ask of Jesus was asked by a guy claiming to have more power than Jesus. He thought he had more authority than Jesus. And he said to Jesus, "Don't you know that I have the power to release you?" But Jesus looked at this Roman governor and he said, "I came to be a witness of the truth. Everyone who is on the side of truth listens to me." And Pilate missed the greatest opportunity ever given to a person. In that moment, he looked at Jesus and he said, "What is truth?" And he turned around and he walked away. Do you know what the word of the year was in 2016? Anyone? Sorry, I didn't know this either. It's post-truth. Post-truth. Now, basically what post-truth means is that objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotional and personal belief. So basically, its feelings and emotions matter more than facts and truth. So what you feel is more important than actually what is real and facts and truth. And in every sphere of life, feelings and emotions matter more than facts and truth. And this is not to say that they discount truth whatsoever, but they're just saying that how I feel matters more than the facts. And if you don't agree with me, or if you say how I feel is wrong, then you are intolerant. You are a bigot. You are living in the dark ages. You are not a very good person. Michael Ramsden, he's an apologist as well for RZIM, and he gives a good example of this, and this happened in the UK a few years ago. So one of Britain's leading feminist philosophers, who is also an atheist, made various comments about transgenderism. Now, we heard a whole talk on that this morning. And she said, okay, so she's a feminist, and she said, well, if you take a man and you remove certain parts from a man, you don't get a woman, you just get a man with less parts. Okay, that was her statement. Now, because she said this in the national press, the National Union of Students came together and they decided that they are going to ban her from speaking at the university because she's transphobic, she hates transgender people, and they're not going to allow her to propagate her hate speech at university. Now, after this happened, another guy called Peter Tatchell, who's Britain's leading gay rights activist, he said to the students, don't ban her from the university, rather let her come and speak and then challenge her on what she believes. You know, ask her questions, ask her the difficult things. Don't just ban her, but engage with her. Now, because he said this, the National Union of Students banned him from the university coming to speak at the university because he's homophobic. So now you have Richard Dawkins comes and he says in colorful language that I'm not allowed to repeat here, that how idiotic these students are, how on earth, he wants to know, do they come to the conclusion that the leading gay rights activist hates gay people. And he says, well, the article goes on to say that the answer is the student who passed the motion against the first feminist lady was gay. So she's disagreeing with what I'm saying, so she must hate me, and so we need to just ban her altogether. You see, this is what happens when feelings and emotions matter more than truth and facts. When you think about what is going on in our world today, the things that we once thought were foundational. I mean, who in their right minds would have thought 15, 20 years ago that we would be having a talk at a church service on transgenderism? I mean, like the things that we thought were foundational seem to be moving. They seem to be changing all the time. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be married? When does life begin? When does life end? What is gender and sexuality? And all these various things no longer seem to have any foundation anymore. And you know what? It's causing plenty of confusion. And there doesn't seem to be any boundaries. And I can do whatever I want, and you can do whatever you want, however you feel. And we think that this is paradise, that this is tolerance, that this is real freedom, the opportunity to do whatever we want, whenever we want. There's no fixed point. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of when you're in a car, and it's usually when you parked on a hill, you've stopped at a robot or something, and you suddenly have this terrible sensation that your car is rolling back. But for a split second, you're not sure if it's your car or what's going on around you. So what do? You look for a fixed point. Okay, so you look next to you and you go, okay, there's a mailbox. Okay, I'm still, the guy in front of me is actually moving. I'm not moving. Okay, that's fine. But you see, now imagine you're on a car on a ferry. So you have that same sensation, but now when you look around, there's no fixed point because it's on a ferry. It's always moving. That's kind of what's happening now in our world, in our society. And we're not using facts and arguments to settle our debates, to settle our discussions. We're not using logic and reason to settle our debates. Instead, we use label and power to settle things, because truth takes a back seat to feelings. And when truth takes a back seat to feelings, our preferences are more important. So my preference is more important than what anything else. But the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what happens when your preference and my preference clash? When how you feel about something and how I feel about something is different, what happens? Who then decides? What should decide? Well, truth should decide what is true and what is not true, but it's not like that anymore. It's those who have the more followers on Twitter and YouTube, those who have more microphones, who have the power to speak, who can use social media. Those are the people who are actually making the decisions. The ones with the louder voice seem to get their way and not necessarily what is true and what is not. And another guy by the name of Abdu Murray, he was talking at a men's breakfast, and he was sharing his testimony about how he became a Christian. He was a Muslim, and he became a Christian, and he was sharing his testimony with this, and a man came up to him afterwards, and he said, I really appreciated the fact that you didn't say that Islam was wrong. And Abdu replied, well, he didn't really feel like he needed to say that directly, because he was talking about the truth of Christianity. And so he just, it was implied that if Christianity is true, well, everything else is false. The implication is that everything else is false. And this man said to him, well, let me show you something. And he had this big diagram with something similar to this. And in the middle, he has this capital T. And he said, this capital T represents total truth, the objective total truth that's out there. So Abdu said, yes, I agree with you so far. And the man went on, but he said, but we don't have the whole truth. So then on the diagram, you see all these little T's. He says, well, you see, some of us just have versions of the truth, but they're incomplete. So we live our lives like that. We just live our lives with these little versions of the truth. So Abdu said to him, you mean all of us? All of us have these little versions of truth? What about Hitler? What about Stalin? What about Mao Zedong? What about Kim Jong-il? What about Idi Amin? All these guys, do they also have little versions of the truth? And he said, well, I can tell you this. I don't prefer their version of the truth, but because mine is incomplete, I can't disagree with them. And Abdu was like, Hitler? Seriously? You can't disagree with what Hitler did? He's like, yeah, that's right, because I don't have the total truth. So Abdu said, so you're telling me you can't disagree with anyone? So he said, yes, that's right. So Abdu said, yes, you can. And he said, no, I can't. He said, yes, you can. You just did it. You disagreed with me. He was trained as a lawyer, so. But can you see how dangerous this man's thinking is? You know, if you run around thinking that we all just have this little version of the truth and we've got to just, and we can't disagree with anyone else's version of the truth, it's incredibly dangerous. And history tells us that there are huge consequences for this way of thinking. Huge. Just look at history. And it's disastrous. And it creates so much chaos. There needs to be a fixed point. There needs to be an objective total truth, as the man said. But it isn't found in any mere human being. So the question is, how can we know truth? How can we know truth? So I want to point out that there's a difference between a theory of truth and a test for truth. Now, I did a course, I'm also working through my master's, and I did a course on this, and so a lot of this has come out of that course that I did. But I think it's really important for us to think through. So if I take the statement, okay, we take the statement, it's raining outside. So whatever I'm saying about that statement when I say it's true, that's my theory of truth. But how you know whether it's raining or not is your test for truth, okay? So a theory is how one defines the terms true or truth, and then a test for truth is how one discovers that, whether that is true or not, that statement that you are making. So there are various kinds of theories of truth, and philosophers, I'm sure there's a lot more than 4. There's probably as many as there are philosophers. So, but these are the 4 main ones. And as you can see by my color scheme there, you can see which one I think is possible. So we have the correspondence theory, the coherence theory, functional theory, and the pragmatic theory. And we're just going to run through these very quickly so that you can just get an idea of what it means. So what is the correspondence theory? Well, it says that a statement is true inasmuch as it corresponds to reality. So in other words, a statement or a belief is true when it accurately matches up with the real world, with what we experience, with what we see. So take the statement, it is raining. It would be true if in fact we went outside and it was raining. So if I said it's raining and you went outside and it wasn't raining, then it would be false. Now some of you are sitting here, I know, and going, wow, you have the amazing ability to point out the obvious. And it's true, I do. I have this amazing ability. But because we are living in this post-truth society, we need to make these clear distinctions again. We need to understand what we're talking about when we say something is true and when something is false. And so we can't take this for granted anymore, and this is why it's so important for us to understand what truth is. So there's another way we can say this. To say of what is that is not, or of what is not that it is false, while to say of what is that is, or of what is not that is not, is true. Okay, who can say that 3 times fast? Okay, that's my first language and I struggle to get that out. So Aristotle was saying this, and basically he is saying that truth is saying what it really is. Okay, so that's he's done a fancy way of saying that truth is saying what it really is. So some other philosophers who hold to the correspondence theory of truth, Plato, Augustine, Aquinas, I won't mention all of them. So basically, if you have your belief over here, you make a claim, a belief, a statement, it is true if it actually matches up with reality, with what we're saying. And I wonder, are there any students here? Can I have 2 volunteers, please, to come up to the front? Don't be shy. Come quickly. It won't be anything hectic, I promise. So I want you to just notice that you base your entire life on this, right? So you can stand over here. So I want you to pretend that you're writing an exam tomorrow, okay? So you believe that your exam is at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's the same exam, okay? They're writing the same exam, same course, same place, same everything. But he believes in his heart of hearts that is at 9 o'clock in the morning. And you believe it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in your heart of hearts. Without a doubt, it's at 1 o'clock. Okay. So just describe your day tomorrow if you believe your exam's at 9 o'clock.
Probably get up at 5 and start learning again.
Okay.
And,
yes.
Having breakfast, take a shower, and then probably get in the car 8:30.
Okay. To get ready for your exam, 9 o'clock. And if yours is at 1, how would your day look like?
The same, but with a morning sleep.
Okay. Okay. So you would sleep in, have breakfast maybe a little bit later, not rush or whatever. Okay. So they have now based their decision on tomorrow on their belief, right? So what they're going to do. Now, you arrive, 8:30, you leave, you arrive at university or whatever, and in the class, and the lights are on, your peers are there, the examiner's there handing out the exam, and you write the exam at 9 o'clock. You arrive at 12:30, 1:45. There are no people there. The classroom is dark. You have missed the exam, okay? So who had the true belief? He did. Okay. So let me just ask you this. If she had believed harder in her heart, like if she'd really, really believed in her heart, would it have made a difference to the time of the exam? No. Okay, thank you very much. Give them a hand. So can you see that we base our decisions, our day-to-day life decisions on this principle? No matter how hard she had believed that it was at 1 o'clock, it would not have changed the time of the exam. Okay. But not everyone holds to the correspondence theory of truth. Here are some of the other theories. The coherence theory. This theory says that a statement is true when it coheres with or is consistent with a body of other statements. So this is problematic because then even a fairy tale could be true, right? So how many different versions of the 3 little pigs are there? Okay, there's lots of different versions. Lots of different authors have lots of different versions of it. So if truth is when something coheres together, that means that we should have 3 little pigs running around somewhere building houses of sticks and straw and bricks, because, a lot of people have said that. So then we have the functional theory, that a statement is true in as much as it fulfills its intended purpose. So let me just explain this a little bit more. What is this? No, it's a picture of a rugby ball. Sorry, philosophical joke. I was deciding whether to put a Blue Bulls one, but I thought, no, I'm in Bloemfontein country. Let me do the Cheetahs here. So now I want you to imagine that you are playing in the garden with your children or with your friends or whatever. You're just kicking the ball, passing the ball around, and someone came up to you and they said, do you know that you are playing with a false rugby ball? Okay? The first thing you would probably say is, hey, what are you doing in my garden? And then the second thing you would say is, what do you mean a false rugby ball? Like, how can a rugby ball be false? I mean, if it's that kind of shape and you can kick it and pass it, and you don't get true and false rugby balls. There's no such thing. And I think actually that when we talk about the truth of Christianity, the people that we're talking to have this kind of functional idea of religion. The same way that you would view a sport. So if I went to you and I said to you that, the guy playing cricket or soccer or rugby, you're actually playing a false sport. There's only one true sport, and that's football, and there's only one true team, that's Barcelona. I have to get that in there. So it wouldn't make sense to you, would it? It wouldn't make sense to you for me to say you're playing a false sport. But when we come along and say that Christianity is true and Buddhism and Islam and all the rest are false, a lot of unbelievers don't understand what we're saying because they have this functional view of religion. They think that, well, if it just works for you, then it's okay. They don't think that these kind of categories that I've been talking about apply to religion. So that's why we need to back up and we need to establish what we mean when we say something is true. And we mean that the statements are corresponding with reality or not. So there either is or there isn't a God. There can't both be a God and not be a God at the same time. Jesus either did or he did not rise from the dead. He either is the only way or not to the Father. And this is why it's important for us to explain to others what we mean when we're saying that Christianity is true. The gospel is true. And then there's the pragmatic theory. A statement is true inasmuch as it works or it's practical. So this theory denies that we have truth when our statements describe the world accurately. It is argued that we cannot get the world as it really is, uninfluenced by our desires or emotions. The best that we can do is to find some useful way to deal with reality. So what is true is what I believe works for me. That's the pragmatic one. And this gives rise to the notion that, it's true for you and not for me. Like, have you heard that on TV? Especially in these talk show, you just live your truth. You live your truth. You have your truth. You just live it out. You just be you. Okay? And we're living in a time where people are saying that truth is just a matter of opinion. It's just a matter of, what you decide on that day. And this would be like Jesus saying that I am one of the ways, I'm one of the truths, and one possible life. Now, if you want to come to the mother or the father through me, that's cool. Don't worry. Go and live your life according to whatever feels right. If truth is just a matter of opinion, this creates a problem for us because then we can't know anything. If you think about it, if truth is just a matter of opinion, then you can't actually know anything. So you can say, well, these pants are blue, and I can say, no, they're actually pink. That's your truth, but my truth is they're pink. Then how do we know anything in this world? And that's not how we live our lives. I want to just touch briefly on the tests for truth. So we looked at the theories for truth. So what are some of the things that people saying what truth is? So the tests for truth, and I would suggest that there are as many different tests for truth as there are different kinds of things you can test for. So what do I mean by this? If you take a mathematical statement, that will have different methods and tools to say a historical statement. So, there's no mathematical formula. You don't get your calculator out and you say, okay, 2 plus 2 minus this, that, da, 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 to decide whether Julius Caesar lived or not. Okay? And the same, the other way around. The questions of history are different to the questions of math, to the questions of science, to the questions of other things in this world. And there are two mistakes that people make on the tests for truth. The first one is they take one tool or one aspect of reality and they improperly use it for another aspect. So like the example I just did for the maths and the history claims. Okay, so they take the tools for mathematics and they try and impose that on the questions of history. And then the other second bigger mistake is to take the tools for one aspect of reality and say, no, we have to use this for all of reality. And the sciences do this a lot. So some people will say that whatever cannot be tested scientifically or proven scientifically is not real, it's not true. Okay. But the problem is can that statement be proven scientifically? You can't put that statement in a test tube or under a microscope or whatever. So people use these tests in different ways. Jesus says in John chapter 8, verses 31 and 32, it says that Jesus spoke to the Jews who had believed him. He said, if you obey my teaching, you really are my disciples. And then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the Jews' response to him is actually quite funny. And they say to him, we are Abraham's children. We have never been slaves of anyone. So how can you say that we will be set free? And you're like, did they forget about the 400 years that they were slaves in Egypt? And also what was happening around the time that this was written? What was happening in the Jewish nation? It was under Roman control. So they were not free in their own nation even then. And then Jesus replied, what I'm about to tell you is true. Everyone who sins is a slave of sin. And a slave has no lasting place in the family, but a son belongs to the family forever. So if the Son of Man sets you free, you will really be free. And can you see the coupling? Truth will set you free. The Son sets you free. The Son is the truth. And Jesus makes that claim himself. He says in John 14, verse 6, I'm sure you all know it very well, that I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And you see, that's a really bold claim to make, isn't it? It's a really bold claim to make. And you can't just make a claim like that and not back it up. Jesus backs up that claim by rising from the dead. And usually the guy who rises from the dead has some credibility, doesn't he? And this is a unique claim that Christianity makes. No other religion says that God came to earth as a man to die a horrific death for us and then physically rise again. Truth is not what we like best, what makes us feel most comfortable, what costs us the least, or what makes us happiest. Truth is what accurately matches reality. And I want to end off with words from a song. It's a song called Rain Delays, and it's written by a secular band called Crash Parallel. And in it they write these words: while sleepless nights and endless days, miniskirts and serving trays, waking up from rain delays and selling sex for pocket change, and living off the alcohol with no one but a cab to call, and lost inside a bathroom stall, this carbon copy life withdrawal. and driving cars we can't afford, just making sure we're never bored, living off our own accord between coffee grinds and corner stores, limousines and cigarettes, chasing dreams with fishing nets, and long weekends without regrets, while no one here is taking bets. And I need someone to believe in. Yes, someone to fill the space with grace, to look into my eyes and touch my face, to make me feel alive today. This is from a secular band who probably has it all. Has the woman, has the money, have the power, have the experiences, have all the feelings in the world. And they boil it down to they need someone to believe in. Someone to believe in. This is the gospel. Jesus is that someone. The truth is not just some far out idea. The truth is a person. We would find that person in Jesus Christ. And that's what we want to tell a broken world. That's what we want to go out and share with this fallen world. That the truth can be found in Jesus Christ. And He will change your life if you only just surrender to Him. Thank you very much.